And it was me, 10 other jewelers, and each jeweler had brought something to try to sell
Oh,
to
cool.
Floyd. And I was like, that's crazy. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm on a reality show. Like, this is insane. But because I didn't have a badge, security also picked me and kicked me out.
Oh, man.
And yeah, so it was kind of like uh it was a messed up situation. But I had a young lady who she was part of the money team and I didn't know it. And they were like literally kicking me out, like, yo, you gotta go, you gotta go. And she vouched for me. She was like, he's part of the money team.
Welcome back to the Scorpion S podcast. I'm super excited to have my good friend Jonathan Villegas here with us today. He's a private jeweler down on Wabash Jewelers Row, and his nickname is the Lord of the Rings. So, Lord of the Rings, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, I'm
Honored to be
excited
here.
to get into the history of how you got into jewelry and some of the exciting pieces you've been working on here in Chicago. But for the listeners out there that haven't met you yet, let's dive into kind of like what you were doing before jewelry and kind of where you came from to start.
Awesome. Well, first of all, my name is Maximus Decimus Aurelius. I'm just kidding. No, my name is Jonathan Villegas, like Mr. Tom had said. Prior to getting into the jewelry industry, I was helping out within our family business. So our family has a chain of Mexican restaurants scattered throughout the Chicagoland area. It's called Los Comales. We also have El Solazo, La Josie, Lucky Burrito, and I want to say that's it. We're also affiliated with like El Milagro and Atotonilco. But
Okay.
it's just like obviously
Very
sharing
Chicago integrated in the culinary scene.
Yeah, I would say modern day Bruce Wayne.
Okay.
In the Latin version. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, where'd you grow up? What region of area?
In Chicago, I'm not sure. It's like right on the cusp of back of the yard. So it's like 47th and Albany.
Okay.
So that's the area that I kind of grew up in, and then I moved to the suburbs where I just kind of pretty much been living there since moving out of Chicago. So yeah, back of the yards is kind of where I'm from. I don't know if you're familiar with that area.
Yeah. I on previous episodes I was connecting with another Southwest suburbs guy, and kind of as we move up closer to the city over the years, you get familiar with different neighborhoods. So
Southside's scary, man. Southside, it can be scary
that's
for
what they
some.
say. But every neighborhood has its pros and cons, and what makes this city great is the diversity and different lifestyles, and just love Chicago. So it's great to have people from different areas to give different perspectives to the viewers on the show here, and kind of prove out why the city's so great.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, school, work, like what were you doing before jewelry, and how'd you get inspired to kind of transition into this industry?
Man, so school is for a lot of people. The school wasn't for me. And my mom, if ever that time comes where you get to meet my parents, they'll tell you, as a kid growing up, I would be pulled out of class, and they would talk to my parents and just like, hey, your son always thinks he knows more than the teacher. And my mom would always say, you're never going to teach a teacher. And I was like, no, that's wrong. So it was always going against the grain. When I got to college, right, so I went, pretty much leading up to college, college was different. From a kid coming from the south side of Chicago, you don't really get to experience anything like that. So I went to community college. Then I got to experience the actual college life, right? So it was like Project X, but in real life. And that to me, like, was completely overwhelming. Not something that I was used to. Being around so many people, all they want to do is party. You kind of get lost in the sauce and you kind of forget why you're there, right? So it's like, I also realized too, like, damn, I don't have the funds to pay for college. So I stopped. And I went back to the workforce, kind of went back to the restaurant, helped out my family even more. So basically just took on a larger role at the restaurant as a management role. And pretty much was doing that. To be honest with you, I've been in the restaurant my whole life. So there's this misconception that we grew up with the restaurant, like the whole silver spoon thing. And that is not necessarily true, because it's different when your whole family and you're part of that group, right? And you guys are all in one environment, and you guys are all like coming together collectively to help build what it is now or what it was, right? So the restaurant's been around for like 30 plus years, and it's been an interesting ride to see that kind of like grow and flourish.
Yeah, I mean, you got to see the business side of the restaurant scene too, and for the folks that know, it's a tough business. I mean, margins are tight, labor, inventory, all this stuff. I mean, you're paying rent, utilities. You really have to work very hard to make those businesses work. So kudos to your family for being able to last decades in this city. Testament to, the backbone of America's the small business owners, the people that are coming here and working hard and serving others. And that's a consistent theme of the guests on the Scorpion Nest podcast is community and service. And the fact that you were brought up in a service-focused environment is, I think, why we connect, because not only are you familiar with serving customers and serving your family, now that you're in the jewelry game, you're servicing people in different ways. And it's kind of just been like your whole MO through your career, right?
Yeah. So, and the one correlation that we have there is, having that bedside manner when it comes to a guest that comes to your store, right? It's like, whether it's just serving them water, serving them something to drink, paying attention to their likes, dislikes, needs and wants, stuff like that really, really goes a long way. So even like in my career of being a small business owner, I've only really hired people that come from the food and beverage industry because they understand that. Yeah. And they're the ones with the hustler mentality, right? Like you can bring in a shark that knows and understands the business, but they're going to run the game a little different,
For sure.
Versus what we need is more caring and understanding people that are going to take the time to sit with you and understand, hear your story. At the end of the day, like a previous guest on your show said, we're the ones being chosen for this person's particular moment in life. This is huge, right? So, we become part of their life and their story as well. So that's very, very important and a detail that often gets overlooked.
Yeah, when I was starting up the Scorpion Nest and we were doing a lot of networking events, I read a book called Unreasonable Hospitality. Have you heard of that book?
No, I haven't.
It was truly eye-opening. I mean, it talks about this young man that goes through the culinary scene in New York, one of the highest rated restaurants. I forget if it's like 55 East something, or maybe I'm thinking of the parking garage here in Chicago. But throw in the comments if you've read Unreasonable Hospitality, what restaurant we're talking about here. But it's all about making the customer feel like they've gotten like way more than they expected, right? So you're surprising them with little things from their hometown, or like you catch something that they said that they're like, oh, I'd really love to have a chocolate donut for dessert. And then all of a sudden it's not on the menu, but they pull out a chocolate donut. And the way you make people feel in hospitality is really how you succeed in business. So if you can figure out that piece and realize that service, hospitality, whether it's restaurants, engagement rings, whatever business you're in, if you can make your customers feel great, they're going to be your biggest salespeople.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You had a little run-in like that too, similar. We had a diamond consultation, and, usually we have whiskey, mezcal, and tequila and water. That's all we offer our guests. And, Tom had asked our guests, like, hey, do you want something to drink? He was like, oh, I'll take a coffee. And he mistook our air fryer for like a Keurig or like an espresso machine. And Tom was like, very, very kind, very generous of Tom. He was like, I'll go get you your coffee. Just tell me your order. And he ran. I was like, yo, he's solid. He's a real one for that.
Yeah, for the viewers that don't know, Jonathan and I work together over at his shop, Casa, Mina, right now. So we're jewelers down here on Wabash.
That's right.
But yeah, it's the little things. I mean, if someone's going to be spending $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 on engagement rings and wedding bands and stuff with us, I feel like the least we can do is go to Starbucks and get them a $5 coffee. I mean, it's the smallest thing, but to the customer, it might be the biggest thing. It's like, wow, he really didn't have to do that.
Yeah, it's huge.
So what sparked your interest in getting into jewelry? Because, things that sparkle, things that flash, things that are expensive are interesting to a lot of people, but for you to choose this as a career move and your way of making a living, how did you decide to get into jewelry?
Well, I had no interest in actually getting into the jewelry industry. completely happened on accident.
Really?
Yeah, and I hate to make it like a cliche rags to riches story because this industry will eat you up and spit you back out and then reconsume you, right? And it's one of those things where I had been transitioning from the restaurant to starting my own kind of thing. So I was making money reselling sneakers.
Okay.
So, back in the day, the sneaker game was you can make a lot of money. You can make between $500 to $1,000 depending on the sneaker. So I was doing that in my spare time, and the only way to be able to have first come first serve access to like a lot of these shoes was to work at a shoe store.
Okay.
So I started working at a shoe store after my hiatus from the restaurant. And it wasn't until then that I had a high school friend of mine walk in, and she found me. She was like, "Hey, why are you working here?" And I was like, and from the outside looking in, I understand, why she asked that question.
Sure.
But it was one of those things where like, I wasn't about to just tell her like, I'm just reselling sneakers, But even then I learned that being a salesman or being a consultant of sort was like within my DNA because, when you work at an establishment like that and your goal is to sell sneakers, you make a small percentage monthly or biweekly, right? So when I talked to the regional manager and they're like, "Hey, we had a meeting," and they're like, "We need to sell socks, cleaners, and insoles." And they're like, "This is the percentage on that." So I was like, I understood that very clearly. I was
So
like,
the margins, you were kind of wargaming.
yeah. So I was like, I can make more money selling that versus selling sneakers when our primary focus is to sell sneakers. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So for like 2 months straight, I had the highest record of selling socks and cleaners. Like it was crazy. And it caught the attention of a regional manager, and he came down and I had a meeting with him, and they were like, "Hey, you're doing an amazing job. You're obviously standing out, but you need to sell sneakers." And I was like, "Well,
Show me the money.
yeah." I was like, "Dude, this makes so much sense to me." And he was like, "Okay, I like your mentality. Maybe we can have you open another store in another mall." And at that point in time, I was like, "I don't know if I want to do this."
Yeah.
Like this isn't what I signed
It's
up for.
not your forever gig.
Yeah. So then when this young lady came and offered me to come work on Jewelers Row, she asked me, she was like, I asked her, "What do you do for a living?" And she told me, she's like, "Oh, we're diamond consultants." I'm like, I have no idea what that means. And she basically just said, like, we help kind of break down diamonds and kind of show clients how to buy an engagement ring and stuff like that. And I was like, all right, cool. Like I'm willing to try because I was also working in the nightlife. So for me, it just made sense because, come Friday, I could just go straight to my nightclub job and just kind of dwell in the city. And I went down for an interview, got hired on the first day. And there was, no looking back after that. Story gets crazy. I mean, if you want to dive into it, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what was the role they had you come on as? Was it a salesperson? Was it a...
Man, I went from being talked to as like, store manager and all these, accolades that you never hear growing, kind of growing up in a family business. It's just, I was washing dishes for 13 years, bro. So, hearing, "Oh, you're doing a great job," or like, "Hey, there's a promotion in line for you." It was new to me. And I left all that, came down to the city to become an errand boy. So I was memorizing everyone's coffee orders and running, picking up, dropping off, so that was kind of my role for like the first 6 days. And I say that because I sold my first engagement ring on the 7th day of me working. And after that,
Sounds biblical.
yeah, it was wild, man. It was crazy. It was a good time.
That's a tough thing for, I'll say, entrepreneurs for the most part, but I guess people in general that are looking at making career moves or just know that they're due for something else, is that putting the ego aside and realizing that you might have to start over in an industry in order to get further than where you are now. And I've dealt with that plenty of times in my life. When I got onto Jewelers Row, I made the connections through my digital marketing expertise, but I didn't know jewelry as much as the guys I was working with. So I had to, swallow my pride and ask a lot of questions, be open to being wrong, making mistakes, and then learning, and then hopefully using that newfound knowledge and expertise and thriving. So for you to come from that hardworking background and then start over again, I mean, for a young man, that's tough.
It is. I mean, and you never stop starting over, no matter what. I've been doing this now for 14 years. So I've been in that building for 14 years now. And it's always, you never stop learning. You're always going to be a student of the game. The moment that you feel that you've mastered everything, you lose. And I tell you that wholeheartedly, just because, like I said, this industry will eat you up, swallow you, crap you back out. And, and it's one of those things where it's like this vicious cycle if you let it. Yeah, especially in the city that we know and love, right? Chicago is very tough. It's very tough to earn the love of your fellow Chicagoans, but once you have it, you have it.
Absolutely.
So it's something to cherish and hold on to.
I talk to people, mostly kind of like the millennials of our area, and even folks ahead of us. Was like, we never knew that we would have to become content creators. If you look at, it's 2025 now. I mean, if you're not making content and building your own personal brand, you're definitely falling behind personally or professionally. And it's something we all kind of have to, like you said earlier, you're always learning, you're always starting over, you're always trying to get better at something else because the world is evolving at a very fast pace. And, now we're doing this podcast because we got to create content. It's king.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because let me tell you something you might not know about me, Tom. Kind of a big deal around here. I'm just kidding. But in all honesty, speaking on the term of content, when we, and I say we, oftentimes as entrepreneurs, we say we, but we mean I, right?
Yeah.
It's like singular. But when I first started, I had a business partner. I had a gentleman that was my best friend, and then we became business partners. We were probably one of the first pioneers of like that first person POV when it came to jewelry. So a lot of the stuff that you see on TikTok now, a lot of the people are filming negotiations. People are filming themselves running around a district. We were doing that 14 years ago.
Damn.
We were the first ones, to the point where like jewelers that have been established and have been doing this for so long were asking us, what do you guys actually do? Like, what do you guys do? Like, how do you guys make money? And, people didn't understand it, but we were the first ever of its kind where some of the people that have now risen, within our community and that come from, I guess you can call them second generational jewelers, they've been able to take that and go to the next level by adapting to the times, right? And it's like, that's kind of where one of those things where you kind of start to ask yourself as a veteran, like, has Father Time kind of defeated you, right? But, you always got to take a step back, reflect on everything, and realize how much that we have paved the way for other people in our city and in our district within Chicago. We've definitely pioneered a lot.
Well, you mentioned a previous business partner, and this brings up a question I wanted to hit on. So you've got several nicknames on Jewelers Row. We got Wolf of Madison, the Hitch of Jewelry,
That's
Lord
right.
of the Rings. So
Lord of the Rings.
maybe you can bridge the gap between your first jewelry job and kind of that new business partnership that you had on Madison.
Yeah. So Wolf of Madison came from actually our favorite person on the row. And it was one of those things where I was one of the only people that would stand on the corner of Madison and Wabash, to be exact. Basically ground zero. If you don't know the coordinates in Chicago, the corner of Madison and Wabash is literally ground zero. I would stand on the corner of Madison and Wabash and just talk to clients. I would stand out there for hours. Hey, are you guys looking for engagement rings? Hey, do you guys need a loose diamond? And I was the only person doing that. And, we'll call him Mr. Lamb. Mr. Lamb came by and that's how me and him met. Is that he would just see me like, man, what are you doing out here? What are you doing? Like, you're like a wolf standing on Madison. And I was just kind of like, wow, that actually has like a pretty cool sound to it. And at the time, Wolf of Wall Street had came out.
Awesome.
So this is just kind of like giving you a timeline. So at the time, Wolf of Wall Street came out, and a lot of people made that correlation between Wolf of Madison and Wolf of Wall Street, which was cool, by the way. At the time, I was like, damn, that's awesome. Minus the, all the
debauchery.
all the negative stuff that came with him. But yeah, it was a cool it was like a door opener, and then that's how I named the first store was Wolf of Madison.
So how did you meet your business partner, and what made you make the leap from working for somebody to starting your own store?
I met him at the first store that I worked at. So honestly, like when I saw him walk in, I thought he was the owner. I didn't know who was interviewing me. I knew like she was kind of like the hiring manager. I didn't know she was the owner. But when I saw him walk in, I was like, oh shit, this gotta be the owner,
Yeah.
And he was just a guy that had been hired like a month before I did, or before I was. And him and I just started talking, and I realized like we were within the same age group, and just like you do at any job, hey, you want to go grab a drink afterward?
Yeah.
And we would just kind of like reflect on the day. Fast forward to maybe 4, 5 years, um, I had an opportunity to get my own store or like a small office, and I had been thinking about it for a long time. Like, I've been doing this for 5 years now. I understand, we learned the industry ass backwards.
Yeah.
We learned everything you were not supposed to learn coming into the industry. And I was like, we can apply this to help more people, to help people our age, to, make them realize like, hey, a lot of this stuff is expensive, but it's not as expensive as you may think it is.
Yeah.
I signed the lease. I'm a very, I don't know, just like a sporadic person. So when the opportunity came, I was like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I want to do it. And I did it. And then I got the keys and I was talking to him and he was like, man, how do you feel? Like, congratulations. Like, you're a business owner now. And I was like, what you mean me? I'm talking about, this is us. This is the we thing. And he was like, oh, damn. And I was like, I know you didn't sign up for this, but I'm the kind of person where I want to see other people win.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to just see myself win. I want to see other people win. I want to bring other people to the top with me. But it can also be a bad thing,
Sure.
right? But yeah, that's how that first kind of came about, and that's how Wolf of Madison was born.
So
Yeah.
how long did you do Wolf of Madison? Because obviously right now you're owner of Casa, Mina,
Right.
and doing your own thing. So
Yes.
how long was the Wolf of Madison?
We had a 6-7 year run
Mm-hmm.
with Wolf, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people still kind of bring that up to me every now and then. They remember the space, and they remember what that vibe felt like. They remember just hearing the name and that correlation with Wolf of Wall Street. And we brought in a lot of suits, to
Mhm.
those to those stores, and it was awesome, man. It was a good time.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to the trajectory here. I want to talk a little bit about some jewelry. So I got a hot topic for you.
Mhm.
Are you a lab grown guy or a natural guy when it comes to diamonds?
I'm a diamond guy in general. So I think natural diamonds are great and lab grown diamonds are even better.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because this is where we come into like unk status. I don't know if you know what that is, Tom.
Explain to the audience that might not know.
Unk status is like, you're an old head. You've been in the game for so long that new generations have came in. They a new type of way that they play. They've learned new tactics, and unks are pretty much just like, we're the old school. And
It's like a new way of saying like Baba.
yeah, it's exactly that. And so learning the ways of the old
Mm-hmm.
has taught us so much, an invaluable amount of information that you can only wish to have and know now, right? Because the jewelry industry game has changed so much.
Mm-hmm.
With the introduction of lab-grown diamonds, machine-made rings, everything is done on computer, and everything is pretty much, we live in a digital era, and that applies to jewelry as well. We came up understanding handmade jewelry,
Mm-hmm.
natural diamonds, and how rare they actually are. Finding something with a great color, finding something with a great clarity, and applying those 4 C's to get something really extraordinary was awesome and a privilege to learn and understand.
Sure.
But it also came with a hefty price tag, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a price tag that you're like, Jesus Christ, this is unattainable
Yeah.
unless you're that 1% in the world. Lab grown, the introduction of lab grown diamonds, right, and that new school teaching and adapting to the ways that the industry moves now has also been revolutionary, where a lot of people that we learn from don't understand,
Mhm.
right? Great example is during the pandemic. 2020 feels like such a blip. Kind of
Yeah.
feels like in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Like you blipped for 5 years and it came back. Like
Mhm.
for me, even thinking about 2020, it's like I don't really remember too much aside from staying home in 2020, right?
Right.
And it was one of those things where the industry changed and it shifted in such a dramatic way where the watch industry that we
Oh,
know,
man, yeah.
love, and understand got turned upside down. Where retailers or wholesalers that have been in our industry for so long that they had their watches set at a certain price point, Rolex boutiques and other boutiques, other larger, household or names when it comes to watchmaking and watchsmithing, were selling out of models that they could never sell out of. and they were reselling. It was crazy. If Stock X has a watch, a Rolex watch, for a resale value, the game's changed.
Yeah.
And a lot of these generational jewelers didn't understand it. Why can't we go to Rolex? Why, you used to sell Rolex at a discount. Now you can't. You can't even get your hands on them. So that was when the industry got turned upside down. That and then lab-grown diamonds really came into play. Like the watch market, lab-grown diamonds just really knocked the industry on the head, and it was devastating for a lot of the older jewelers that couldn't adapt to the new times. So us being in between those two generations, we were able to adapt to the new way of the world, but we were also able to still have and respect the way that the industry was run before.
Do you feel like the old school jewelers that may be loyal to natural diamonds, are they leaving money on the table, or are they still doing fine?
They're still doing fine. And the reason why I say that is because, like everything, and time changes, so much, the cost of natural diamonds has also gone down. And also too, and I can get a lot of hate for this, but there's really no value behind diamonds, right? So if you were to come and you had a great amount of money and you're like, hey, John, I want to invest into said diamond of X color, X clarity, and X carat size, because I want it to be a long-term investment, it's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Because it really holds no, it's only worth what someone is willing to pay for it.
Sure.
Versus gold. Gold it's a currency of the world, so gold is going to go up over time, which we've now seen gold hit 2, 3, 5 new record highs within the last 2 years. So it's been crazy. It's a little nuts.
Let's talk about gold for a minute. So for the folks that aren't in the industry, they might see different types of gold. So you got 14 karat, 18 karat, 24 karat,
correct,
rose gold, white gold. Can you tell the listeners a little bit about like what's the difference between the carats of gold and then like the different colors?
Okay. All right, let me switch
We're putting
gears.
you on the spot.
Yeah, let me switch gears here. You're getting me into full-time jeweler mode. So the difference in purities, right? Gold starts at 24 karat. Then it gets broken down into 22 karat. Some cultures see it as ceremonial jewelry, right? Ceremonial purposes. You got 22 karat gold coins, 22 karat chains, bracelets, whatever. And then it's 18 karat, 14 karat, and then 10 karat. Oftentimes you can find gold diluted even into 8 karat, 6 karat, and so on. Basically, the way that works is 24 karat is gold at its raw and purest, but it's also very soft and very malleable, and it's not something ideal for jewelry. So then it gets diluted into 22 karat by adding in different alloys like nickel, brass, so on.
Yeah.
Then the mixture on how you keep diluting gold is by the percentage in different alloys. So if you're going from 22 karat, you might have 22 and 24 karat. 24 karat is 100% pure gold. 22 carats is 75% gold. Then you go down to 18 karat, and it keeps kind of progressively going down like that. So the lower the purity for 10 karat, the lower the gold amount, but it's still gold, right? So it's just filled with more alloys.
Okay, so naturally gold is yellow in color. Now, how do you get rose gold or white gold?
White gold, so there's no real such thing as white gold. So white gold will always have an underlaying off-white-ish color, but it undergoes a process called rhodium plating. So rhodium plating is basically a liquid solution connected to a battery, and you pretty much drop the item into it, and that creates a chemical compound, which then has a chemical reaction and makes the yellow gold piece or the white gold piece bright white. That's how you get white gold. Rose gold is made by mixing copper into the gold mixture, and it gives it that rosy tone. Now, there is also another version of rose gold called Ever Rose that Rolex and some of these other, big watch houses use by instead of adding brass and copper, they'll substitute whatever that white metal is for platinum, making the rose gold hypoallergenic.
Gotcha.
Because a lot of times people can be allergic to nickel or brass or copper.
Yeah, interesting. So I run into this, relatively frequently, and I'm sure you have too over the years, when customers come in and they say, "Oh, I want a silver ring or I want a silver chain." How often do you go, well, do you want silver or do you want white gold?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because a lot of times people come in and it's okay, right? I understand that shopping at a jewelry store can be a little bit intimidating. I've never, aside from working in the industry, I never actually stepped foot in a jewelry store because it was always intimidating.
Yeah.
So one thing that we really, really pride ourselves on is creating an easygoing environment by asking the right questions. And we always tell people, no question asked is ever a dumb question, right? And it's like, this is your time to learn, absorb as much as you possibly can, and walk out feeling confident. So when a customer says, I want the ring to be silver, but we're talking engagement rings, 9 times out of 10, I know they mean white gold, but I'll ask, does your better half have any allergies to any sort of metals? Then it's easy for me to kind of filter whether they're allergic to silver or whether they want silver, white gold, or platinum, because it's a segue for me to get into that topic. Okay,
Right.
well, we have platinum, we offer white gold, and then there's silver as well. Then they ask the right question. So it's just a matter of herding them to the right direction or leading them into the right direction.
Right. So for the consumers out there, understand there are multiple versions of what you're seeing a picture of or
Yeah.
online. So know your precious metals,
Yes.
know your diamonds. We'll
Yes.
help you get there if you have questions.
Yes.
But silver doesn't necessarily always mean silver when you're making the jewelry.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, let's get into some fun stuff. What's the most extravagant or like unusual piece you've ever made? Because you make a lot of custom stuff.
Yeah.
Or do you have like a celebrity that you did a really cool project for?
It's yes to all those questions. We do have some pretty cool stuff that we've made. We have some interesting pieces that we've made. I know we did like a prelim and I told you what the most unusual custom piece requested was, and we didn't make it.
Well, we might have to save that one for Scorpion
Yeah,
Nest After Dark,
you could
but
probably,
just understand that it's probably not safe for work.
Yeah, it's definitely not safe for work. But that was
So what's
an odd
something you've
request.
actually finished that's like unique?
Well, for me, a piece that means a lot is the one thing that we're known for, especially like as Wolf of Madison or me myself and Casa, Mina, is our sculpture pendants, right? So we do very, very high resolution sculpture pendants, and they're usually religious pendants. So my grandmother always had Saint Michael, the Archangel portraits at home. We had Saint Michael the Archangel, statues at home. He was pretty much everywhere. So growing up, seeing Saint Michael to me was just very, very meaningful.
Yeah.
And then obviously, you kind of grow up, you understand religion, you look into it a little bit more, you start recognizing some of these patron saints for who they are and what they did. And I think one of the best pieces I made was actually a Saint Michael the Archangel pendant, which we can probably throw up on the screen somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's so detailed. Like when I talk about these are the pendants that we're known for, you can literally take this pendant and it's like it belongs in the Smithsonian.
Damn.
Right? It belongs in a church. And it's like one of those pieces where you look at it, you're like, I don't know if I want to wear this or stare at it.
Yeah.
And now I take huge pride in that sort of work. Aside from engagement rings, that is probably my second specialty.
You also had a pretty hefty Jesus Cristo piece that was like solid gold, wasn't it?
Yes, we've had a few.
How many grams of gold was that hefty one?
Which one are you referring to?
It was the one with the, like, I don't know if it was like ceramic painting or whatever, but it was just like so heavy.
The rose gold one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one weighed a little bit over an ounce of gold. So that one was about 40 grams of 14 karat rose gold. And that one, same thing. That one's called the Prince of Peace. So they all kind of have a name, so it's pretty cool. And that one was actually the Art Institute of Chicago. I'm sorry, the Field Museum had reached out and they wanted to display it. And
No way.
yeah, in the jewelry part that they have in the museum, which was really cool. And it was like one of those things where I was like, whoa, this is so awesome. And I'm so honored to have even been in that conversation. The problem came in the fine print where it said, as a form of donation.
Oh, no.
And I was like, damn, that kind of, yes, you'll be etched in history forever.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also like, damn, this took me like a year and a half to make. And, I wanted to really like have somebody unique and somebody special wear this.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a cool honorable mention. But yeah, that pendant. We'll throw a picture up to. That was a really, really, really awesome pendant, fully detailed. And it was a great take on the man himself.
Talk to me about some unique celebrities or like high profile clients that you've worked with in the past.
Aside from Mr. Tom, I've had the privilege to work with Floyd Mayweather, so that was awesome. It was also very chaotic.
I'm sure.
Yeah, and it was. I'll talk about this because it was one of those moments where I wasn't sure what was happening. Right at the time, I was working at another jewelry store. This gentleman came in and said, "Hey, I'm a DJ. This is who I'm with. This is who I represent. I want to make 12 of these pendants." Right. So I was like, "Oh, okay." And I'm the kind of chatterbox where I'm going to entertain anything, whether you're buying or not. I kind of want to see the thing through. And it turned out he wasn't lying, right? And I was like, chimed in my boss at the time and I said, "Hey, this guy says he works for this person and he wants to make 12 pendants."
12 pendants?
12 pendants for like, I guess.
Like the team or
Yeah,
whatever?
the closest members to his team. And my boss was like, "There's no way," right? So he came out, he kind of took over. I kind of got pushed to the side. And it was one of those things where I had no idea whether we were doing it or not. We ended up taking 12 pendants, scrapping that idea, and making one large money team pendant. And then when the time came, right, because that was like a month leading up to when we actually got to interact with them, it was me and like 10 other jewelers, right?
Yeah.
And it was when he was fighting Canelo Alvarez. So this was a while back. But this was one of the most like unique experience I've ever got to deal with. And we went to the Chicago theater. I was given a badge, but my boss was like, "Give me that badge," right? So he got in, and I was left outside. But I had the pouch of jewelry, and so they had to come get me no matter what.
Right.
So I made my way into the Chicago theater backstage. I got to see Floyd Mayweather, his team. He was just sitting there, diamond glasses, just chilling. I saw my boss just standing there next to him, and I was like, "Damn, that should have been me," you know. But whatever, it is what it is. And it was me, 10 other jewelers, and each jeweler had brought something to try to sell to Floyd. And I was like, "That's crazy. I feel like I'm on a reality show. Like, this is insane." But because I didn't have a badge, security also picked me and kicked me out.
Oh man.
And yeah, so it was kind of like it was a messed up situation. But I had a young lady who, she was part of the money team and I didn't know it, and they were like literally kicking me out, like, "Yo, you gotta go, you gotta go." And she vouched for me. She was like, "He's part of the money team and he can sit right here."
Oh wow.
And I was like, "Dang, like I made it," you know? Like that was a cool moment in time.
Wait, so what piece did Floyd end up buying?
So he didn't even end up buying it. That's the crazy part, is like we got the experience, but he didn't end up buying it. So we made like this boxer silhouette and it said the money team on it, and it was made with like canary yellow stones. And then I think he ended up buying another piece very similar in New York.
So what do you do with that piece after?
We just scrapped it. I mean, at the time, yeah, the store where I was working at, I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know what happens next.
Do you have any celebrities or Chicago influencers that you'd love to make a piece for?
Yeah, man, I would love to work with, I don't know if I would want to work with Kanye now, you know, but it would be dope. You know, I'm not going to say no, but it would be awesome. I think for me, if I wanted to, I think I'm in celebrities aside, I think I really enjoy helping out just the everyday people.
Yeah.
And the entrepreneurs and the people that are, you know, constantly on the grind. Because those are the people that we want to see win. You know, once you make it, you kind of forget about all the little people. So
yeah,
I'm for the people, like actually for the people.
Lord of the Rings, man of the people.
That's right.
So earlier you mentioned that your family was in the restaurant biz. Talk to me about La Josie a little bit, because that's in the neighborhoods that kind of a lot of us go out to. And I know it's a name that people know about, but who actually runs the restaurant? Do you have a hand in like the menu and stuff, or like how in depth are you at La Josie?
So aside from the name, I have nothing else to do with La Josie. So it's family owned and operated. So my cousin, who I look at as like my big brother, he owns, manages, and runs the restaurant. So it's a restaurant located in the West Loop, right on the corner of Randolph and what is that? Halstead.
Okay.
Right across the street from Al Cheval. It's got a rooftop bar. So it's a full mezcal service bar. So they have a ton of great mezcales to choose from and to try, which we've also kind of implemented into the jewelry store. And that's kind of people kind of make that correlation, right, between us and La Josie. Also, fun fact, La Josie was also named after my grandmother, when Josie is also my daughter's name.
Tell me about that.
Which part?
Then, like, how'd you, like, did your cousin say, hey, Jonathan, I need you to come up with a name for this restaurant? Or, like, how does it all correlate? Yeah.
So both him and I had a very, very, very close relationship with my grandmother. Where, like, that was his second mom. That was like his second mom. That was my second mom. My parents were always working. My grandma was the one who helped bring me up. So us being that close, we know when she passed, we wanted to do something to pay homage, right? And, you know, my wife and I we already had a baby cooking in the oven, and it was like we had already decided around the same time that he decided to name the restaurant La Josie, we were going to name our daughter Josephine. So it was just kind of like one of those things that happened organically on its own, but we both understood, like, you know, this person meant a lot to us. And that's how the name came about.
I love the homage to family, and
always
that's so central to kind of your upbringing and the whole restaurant scene in general. Because how many locations of the other restaurants you guys have?
Ooh, at one point in time, there was 32, 24, maybe 32, and now I think we're down to 24.
Okay,
if that.
And what's the name of those? It's a chain, right?
Yeah, it's called Los Comales.
Okay.
And Los Comales is a staple in Chicago. Whether you've enjoyed a late night, you've got to eat at Los Comales. Whether you were a child and you were taken to that restaurant to eat with your family on Sundays, you ate at Los Comales. A lot of people have their opinions about the restaurant now because there's so many other, like, gourmet taco spots to choose from. But Los Comales will always hit home. Los Comales is our home base, and that's where the heart is.
You said you were connected a little bit with El Milagros, the tortillas?
We've known them for so long, right? Like, I've known their family for so long that we have a great relationship.
What's the hype with those tortillas? Because that's kind of like a Chicago, like, thing. Like, if you know about it, you love it.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to go buy them if you see them at the...
It's a must-have for Latinos. It's like, you know, it's Milagro tortillas to Latinos are what tavern style pizza is to Chicagoans.
Okay.
If that, or maybe, or like what a Chicago hot dog is to Chicagoans. I don't even know if Chicago people like Chicago style hot dogs.
I do. I certainly do. Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go. You know, so it's like, you know, it's like, yeah, it's a staple for the community. It's a staple for our people, and we absolutely love them. Yeah, I don't know what it is.
What restaurants in Chicago do you like to go to outside of the family biz? Because we have a very, very strong culinary scene in this city.
Yeah.
And you go to different neighborhoods.
One of the best, I would say.
Different cultures, different regions, different dialects, different styles of food. So what do you like to do when you're having a weekend?
Oh, man. Dude, that's tough, bro, because I don't be outside. Despite what people think, I don't be outside like that.
But you gotta eat.
Yeah, I mean, me and the fam, we do enjoy, you know, a nights out. My parents are the ones that they're like reliving their 20s and 30s, man. They go out all the time. I would say if I had to pick a restaurant that I enjoy right now, aside from like our family ones, I would probably say it's Costera Cocina.
Where's that at?
It's also in the West Loop.
Okay.
So it's a very like Tulum, very jungle vibes kind of Latin restaurant.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty good.
You were talking about a place at work the other day, Prince Pizza.
Oh, Prince Street Pizza.
Yeah.
That place is good too.
I just tried that for the first time the other day.
What'd you think?
I gotta say, number one, I enjoyed how fast the service was.
Yeah.
Even though it was kind of like packed.
Yeah.
It was kind of like conveyor belt style. It's like,
yes,
here's the menu. Yeah. Here's the visual of like everything you can choose from.
Yeah.
Tell them. And then, you know, you got 2 slices in about 5 minutes later. So
on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give it?
People ask me like, what's your favorite pizza in the city? And it's such a tough question to answer because there's different styles. There's different, like, what vibe am I in? Like who am I with? So it's like, it's hard to put it in a category, but I think of it as like fast casual pizza.
Yeah.
Whether you're inebriated or not. I was sober at the time when I tried it the first time, so compliments to the chef. But I enjoyed the variety of styles they had too. So they had like Detroit style, Neapolitan, kind of New York slice, They're doing a great job. I think
Yeah,
the hype is real. So if you
the hype
haven't
is
been to
real.
Prince Street Pizza, definitely
Good.
go.
Yeah, it's awesome.
The one thing is, I think they need bigger trash cans outside because they were just a pyramid of empty
Yeah,
pizza boxes outside.
it's
So they need
crazy. Yeah, it's good. No, that's really good. I enjoy pizza a lot too. So
yeah.
it's definitely. I know. Tom, let me ask you this real quick. You gonna pass me the ball? I'm gonna pass it back. Um, when you have family that comes in from out of town,
hmm
they know you're a Chicagoan.
Yeah.
Do you take them to Giordano's when they ask you for pizza? Where do you take them?
I don't take family to Giordano's. I don't do the deep dish thing. Deep dish is for tourists. Like you mentioned earlier, tavern style or thin crust is for the
Yeah.
OGs.
Yes.
And then, I don't hate on New York style pizza or Neapolitan because,
Great.
obviously, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm wearing a pizza chain. I love all pizzas equally. But no, deep dish, it's that's for like friends that have never been to Chicago,
Yes.
people that are just taking a trip and visiting. You got to check the box, and
Yeah,
it's not bad pizza. It's just not everyday pizza.
that's fair. That's
So
fair. Very
that's
fair.
that's my take on it.
Yeah.
Whether you
Fair.
agree with it or not, I'm gonna die saying deep dishes for the tourists.
I agree with you 100%.
One thing I want to talk about because I think is very unique is that you're part of an entrepreneur basketball league, and I know
Yes.
basketball is kind of a passion of yours. Can you
Yeah.
tell us about who started that league or like
Yeah.
what it's all about?
Yeah, man. The EBL is what I like to call it. The Entrepreneurial Basketball League. It started, in all honesty, the concept. So I started it. The concept of it came about when my wife and I found out, our daughter Josie has a very rare neurological disorder called Rett syndrome. So that inhibits a lot of children with their mobility, their ability to speak, and just their everyday, function.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where after that happened, I started training a little differently, right? It was more about functional movements, being able to, you don't really think about things like that until something actually happens,
Sure.
right? So it's like, oftentimes I walk into the gym, people confuse me for Chris Bumstead. I understand the resemblance. I'm just kidding. It's one of those things where I do train differently. It's more functional than anything. And EBL came with the idea of getting entrepreneurs off of their ass.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes, right, like I said, I don't go outside. You're not going to catch me at a club. You're not going to catch me. Very rarely you'll see me at a restaurant. But the one thing you will catch me doing is playing basketball.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, I'll be playing ball. That started with that. And it was like, okay, how do we create a group of people or a community? How do we bring together a community of entrepreneurs without involving some sort of alcohol or like partying or some sort of like that ambiance? And basketball was the second best choice because, well, golf was the first, but I don't know how to golf.
Yeah.
So, I'm not there just quite yet. And basketball to me has always been fun. It's always very competitive. And the best correlation that I've had was, how well do you know your jeweler? How well do you know your barber? How well do you know your doctor, your attorney?
Mm-hmm.
You get to see these people in their rawest, truest form
Sure.
when they're on the court, whether they're playing fair, whether they're cheating, they're crying about calls, and just the way that they conduct themselves in a sporting environment,
Sure.
right? It kind of lets you in to who they are as a person. So that was a way for me to bring together a group of individuals that offer Chicago something a little differently, and just getting them moving again,
Yeah.
right? Getting them to move with a purpose. And then that slowly turned into a basketball league.
There's a lot of great elements there. Number one, like just the realization that you personally are healthy and that
Mhm.
you should use that as much as possible because you never know what could happen. And
Right.
be thankful for the fact that we got working arms and legs and
Yeah.
a healthy body. So, be thankful for that.
Yep.
And getting people together in a healthy way, I think is a great idea because everything in our culture really revolves around drinking and eating and partying and
Yeah.
all this stuff that kind of isn't
Yeah.
necessarily the best for you
Yeah.
mentally or physically outside of moderation.
Correct.
So it's great that you're being conscious and bringing people together in a physical activity. And it's accessible, right? Like you don't need to be great at basketball. All
No.
you need to have is a good pair of
Yeah.
basketball shoes and a little bit of hand-eye coordination.
Yeah,
and
man.
you can play.
In the beginning, everybody, I'll say we all sucked, right? Everyone was terrible.
Yeah.
A lot of people forgot how to dribble the basketball. People couldn't make it up and down the court, back and to and from. Now we've been doing this we're going on 3 years now. So it's been 3 years of continuous play. Some people have got their competitive itch again in them, and they've been training. They've hired coaches, and they like to come in season after season.
Go.
Yeah, prepared,
Yeah.
right? And it's nice because you get to see some of your fellow entrepreneurs in a competitive nature. Whether it brings out the best or the worst in you, it's just something you leave on the court.
Have you guys worked in any sponsorship deals yet?
We haven't yet because it's also one of those things where you don't want to ruin what you got going on. And, by bringing in sponsors, now you have responsibilities and there's a lot of moving parts that can really get into the business side of it. And we want to keep it light. We want to keep it fun. But for the tournaments, our end of the year tournaments, I want to say that this year we probably will be looking for sponsorships because we do want to make a huge donation to the Rett Syndrome Foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great goal. So if you got any listeners out there that would like to donate to the
EBL.
Entrepreneur Basketball League, EBL, get in touch with us. Couple of things before we wrap up. Of course, as always, the hour just seems to melt away, and we might have to do another episode to talk about more of the stories on Wabash and stuff. But first question is, who do you think would be a great future guest for the Scorpion Nest podcast?
Man, do you want to keep it jewelry related, or do you want to
any Chicago cat that you think is interesting? We'd love to have him on the show.
There's a few. I can definitely put you in contact with my cousin Jose Barajas from La Josie if you wanted to tap into like the food and beverage industry.
Yeah,
I'm sure he'd be willing to do it. He would love to do it. We also have another individual, and she works very closely with the Bulls. So too, she's an awesome person. I'll introduce you to her. I'll make the right connections for you. But I think one of those two people would be really, really cool to have and just kind of hear their story.
Yeah, I think getting into both the food and bev and kind of the sports scene of Chicago would be great avenues for future episodes.
For sure.
And lastly, before we go, if listeners or viewers want to get in touch with you for custom rings, custom pendants, just hang out, play basketball, how can they find you?
You can find me at 5 South Wabash. So we are in the historic Jewelers Building. If you can only find me on social media, it's jonathanwolf.ceo on Instagram. It's the same for TikTok. And then we're on Facebook and Twitter, I think, as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Jonathan, as always, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for giving me the deep dive into not only your history, but some of the fun things that you're doing to shape this great city. And I'll see you in the office tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me, man.